Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Our newest champion, Qiyana, has finally been officially revealed by Riot Games. It looks like this is actually a little bit earlier than they anticipated. Usually they do it towards the beginning of the next week because that's when the new patch is about to go live. They might have changed things up. I know they did something interesting with Yumi last time as well, so this might just be their new cycle. But either way, Qiyana has been revealed, and she has a very interesting kit here with a couple of different options. Now, for context, Qiyana is supposed to be a new mid-lane AD assassin, so probably will be building things like lethality, so you can consider all of what she's doing to be benefiting from stuff like Duskblade, Edge of Night, that sort of a thing. She has an interesting mechanic, though, in that she has the ability to sort of draw power from elements, and that changes sort of the way she plays. Now, that's primarily done with her W, which if you haven't seen this page, I will have it linked down in the description. But essentially, her W is a small dash, and she targets an element and draws power from it. Now, the three elements she gets access to are brush, wall, and river, which sounds really weird, but essentially it means you're targeting terrain features on the map you're playing on. So put your mouse on a brush and click on it, she'll dash towards it and gain power from that brush. If you put your mouse on a wall, she'll dash towards that wall and gain power from it. And now this is going to affect a couple of different things about her kit and generally change the way that Qiyana is going to play. Now, primarily this is done with her Q, as this gains a bonus effect. If she has no element, it just slashes the area in front of her, but if she does have an element, she throws it so it has a little bit more of a range. Now, to slow down a little bit here, if she has river as her element, as you can, okay, so we'll start with wall, I guess, because this is the first one. This just deals bonus damage to units with low HP. So if you're trying to assassinate somebody or finish off the kill, it makes sense to press W, dash forwards, draw some power from the wall, and then throw your Q at somebody in order to get that bonus execute damage. If she's drawn power from the river, this is going to root her opponent, so that's the option if you want to go for a more utility base to slow somebody down so you can catch up and start wailing on them. And her finally, if she's drawn power from brush, she gets a stealth trail that grants bonus movement speed. So that means that she can throw her Q out, it'll deal damage to enemies it passes through like usual, but then she gets a trail of stealth that follows behind, so she can kind of sneak up on enemies unseen. And it's a fairly wide area of effect too, so it looks like she'll have some ability to juke back and forth like a collie and maybe dodge some enemy skill shots, as they know she's in the area somewhere, they just don't know exactly where, so could be quite interesting. The other part of her kit that this affects is her ultimate, which is called Supreme Display of Talent, which is honestly a terrible name, but we'll get to that here in a second. This just creates a shockwave that knocks back enemies, and meanwhile, if any river, brush, or wall hit by the shockwave explodes, dealing damage and briefly stunning enemies. Now, this looks like it doesn't do any damage at all unless it hits a river, wall, or brush. So that's highly relevant to know, especially given that as an assassin, you're really going to want to make sure that you're not just knocking a target away from you, that you then have to try and follow up. So it really will put pressure on Qiyana to try and set this skill shot up so it's hitting at least a brush or being used in the river, which is going to be quite strong because it looks like it's a fairly large area of effect, and it damages and stuns enemies that it struck. Now, the stun isn't that long, so it's not that concerning, but it still looks like it's going to be quite scary, especially this area of effect here at the very end. That looks huge. I don't know how long that goes along the walls, but I'm already picturing a scenario where Qiyana presses R against a wall, and a team fight she's not even a part of gets affected because the explosion travels all the way down the length of the wall. So I think that could be funny. I don't know. I'm assuming there is some maximum distance on it, the same as with Bar's Magical Journey when he uses that to leave the base through the wall. But either way, this is going to be a pretty strong ultimate if Qiyana can find a way to work terrain into it. If she can't do that, it's not going to do that much. And that means that in the middle of mid lane, Qiyana's actually at a bit of a disadvantage because unless she can really line it up to sort of hit the walls on the side of mid, she's not going to get a lot of value out of this ultimate other than a panic, push the jungler away from me so I don't die button. Looking at the rest of her kit, though, her E is Audacity. She basically just takes a fixed distance dash towards a target. This looks like it's going to be a lot like Fizz Dash, where if you press the button, you sort of you always dash the same amount of distance. So if you're right next to them, you'll dash through them. If you're far away, you'll dash towards them, that sort of thing. But that's just basic mobility, which makes sense. She is an assassin. So I know there are already people who are complaining, oh, she has too much mobility and execute. Yeah, that makes sense for Riot, but she's an assassin. She should have mobility. She should have executes. Moving on. Finally talking about her passive, Her first attack or ability against an enemy champion deals bonus damage, and the cooldown resets when she draws a new element. So what that means is that Qiyana's essential combo is that she wants to get in range with Audacity, auto attack with Royal Privilege, then draw an element with her W, using the dash to probably stay in range, and then immediately auto attack them again or hit them with her Q, because that way she'll double dip on the Royal Privilege damage. Alternatively, using the QWQ combo like Riot talk about, hit them with the Q, dash to gain an element, and then hit them with the Q again. Now, it's unclear what the cooldowns on any of these abilities are, so that might be totally infeasible because Q's cooldown is 8 seconds, let's say, at early ranks, and there's no possible way for you to pull that off in lane. However, that does look like it will generally be her bread and butter combo, is getting as many resets on Royal Privilege as possible in order to get her damage through, and meanwhile using the rest of her mobility to stay in range of the target while she auto attacks them and hits them with Q, which means that it looks like she's going to have a fairly long time to kill as opposed to a lot of other assassins. Qiyana will really have to be picking which element is going to serve her the best, as opposed to just, well, I'm just going to take wall because it gives me a lot more damage and I want more damage. But because she has to be landing consecutive Qs, landing consecutive auto attacks, using mobility to stay in range, it doesn't look like it's that feasible of a possibility for her to just kind of jump on you and hit every button and kill you, unless she's very far ahead. Obviously, assassins can always do that. Her ult doesn't look like it has that much of a play in her kit, unless she specifically is in the river. That's the biggest point at which Qiyana's ultimate is going to be strong, because even disregarding the brush nearby, you just have river. Your ultimate is always going to deal the damage and stun if you're in the river, which makes it look like that's where it's going to be the strongest. Now, it does knock enemies back, so there is a possibility that if you cast it at max range, you'll just knock any enemies that might have been damaged or stunned away, and then they don't take any damage at all. But generally, river is going to be very strong for Qiyana, as well as the jungle, because that way you have plenty of walls and brush nearby in order to execute on that. It's going to be lanes where Qiyana is at her weakest, because she doesn't have places where she can draw multiple elements. She'll always be able to get wall. I don't think there's any possible way in Summoner's Rift you can't get wall, but generally it's going to be when she's at her weakest and has the fewest number of options for her. So honestly, a very interesting champion, a very interesting sort of kit. I'm looking forward to kind of playing around with this and seeing how it works in game. Now, I know I already gave my thoughts in an article, but generally speaking, I think design-wise at least, because that is always something I talk about in these videos, Qiyana is garbage. Visually. Kit-wise, I think looks really interesting, like I just said. Visually, garbage. She looks like a Smite character. There is nothing interesting at all about this character, right? It took that Egyptian Nidalee skin, and they took Sivir, and they mashed them together, and they said, okay, cool, we got Qiyana. And this is supposed to be, supposedly, the flagship character for a new faction. Qiyana is some wannabe empress for this jungle faction that we're just now finding out exists. I'm not interested in this. I don't think this looks good. I don't think this has any interesting thing. This tells me nothing about the faction. This is just a woman in a dress. The big hoop is the only interesting thing about her. I'm glad we got to see that in combat, because she does wield it in a very different way than Sivir. Obviously, besides the Q, she still throws it like a frisbee, but she generally does fight with it in an interesting way, so I do like that at the very least. But visually, very uninteresting. Looking forward to finding out more about her faction. I'm really, really interested in this sort of Mesoamerican jungle-dwelling faction that is sort of east of Shurima. Really going to be excited to learn more about that, but visually, not that excited. But kit-wise, at the very least, I think this is very solid. I think there's a lot of room for Qiyana players to have good outplays, and generally, I don't think that this is as bad as, let's say, like a Zed Assassin kit, where the whole point is press all your buttons on somebody and they die. This very much so is about using your mobility to stay in combat, to stay out of danger while you're weaving your damage in a similar fashion to Akali. How Akali will very rarely hit every single button on her keyboard and just kill you instantly. It's a lot more about getting into fights, using your dashes to go in, to go out, to get multiple procs of the passive, and then to eventually kill somebody. So super excited to see what she's going to be like when she finally does hit live. Let me know your thoughts on Qiyana down in the comment section below. Would love to hear if you think she's going to be completely broken, if you think she's going to be not that bad at all, if you like her design, if you hate her design. Let me know all that down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, linked down in the description. I upload articles talking about League of Legends, community scene, professional scene, all sorts of different stuff. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out that link. Once again, thank you all so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.